your reporting on David Tepper's hand or role in the benching of Bryce Young is what?
My understanding is, to give you the timeline, going back to Sunday, Dave Canales goes to the podium after the game, after another just brutal performance all around, not just by Bryce Young, but by the offense. The defense is super undermanned. They've given up a lot of points here. The whole thing has not looked good through the first 2 weeks. He's asked repeatedly about, is Bryce going to start? Is he going to play in Vegas? Dave Canales says, Bryce is our quarterback. That night, Canales goes and he starts watching the tape. And what he sees is not somebody who, in his mind, should be starting NFL games right now. And so he comes in the office the next morning. He does speak with Dan Morgan. That was a conversation that was ongoing for about, the 24 hours leading up to the final decision. Certainly, when you're talking about benching the guy who was the number one overall pick that you traded up for in the draft like 17 months ago, that's going to involve a conversation at the ownership level with David Tepper. But this was Dave Canales' decision here. And Rich, as you peel back the layers on this a little bit, I think that you have a situation where Dave Canales, and I've not talked directly to Dave about this, but you seem to have a situation where when you're a new coach and you're trying to gain the credibility in the locker room and you don't have the success out of the gate here, you're thinking about the dynamics of a player basically being on the field because he's on scholarship. And Bryce Young was playing because he was the number one overall pick. Dave Canales was brought in part because they needed to get Bryce Young turned around. And everything we heard from Canales, he came on the Insiders back in March and talked about breaking it down in terms of the footwork, how they were going to rebuild him from the ground up. You watched it through the first 2 games. I certainly don't think anyone looking objectively would say it got better. You can quite possibly say it looked worse. So then how, after those 2 games, are you coming back in and looking Adam Thielen in the eye, looking Deontay Johnson in the eye, looking some of those other veterans in the eye and saying, we still believe Bryce Young gives us the best chance to win? It's not to say that we will never see Bryce Young take a snap for the Panthers again. Shoot, he's going to dress as the number 2. If something happens to Andy Dalton this week, Young is going to be right back into the lineup. But when we saw Andy Dalton on the field last year in December in Seattle, he played at a pretty high level. He played well. Him and Thielen were playing what Bryce Young later called dad ball. They were just, it was 2 veteran, savvy dudes who were connecting, and they got the football around. That's what they want to see. You're facing Patrick Graham this week, the Raiders defensive coordinator, one of the toughest guys schematically to face in the NFL, who just got the better of Lamar Jackson and the Ravens 1 week ago. At least put a guy out there in Andy Dalton who you think, hey, this guy can get the ball to some of the other players. Maybe it doesn't look better. Maybe it's bad again. And maybe they turn back to Bryce Young in the not too distant future. The strange part about this, there's a lot of strange parts about this, Rich, but you go back 5 years ago, Andy Dalton, after 7 seasons and change as the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, was benched because the Bengals at the time wanted to get a look at their rookie quarterback who was named Ryan Finley. And Finley was so bad in that opportunity that he got benched again for Andy Dalton. And then, by the way, Ryan Finley never played in the NFL again, was released and never popped up again in his NFL career. So Dalton has seen the other side of this. He's got an opportunity. Go out, function, and he can probably buy himself another 5 years in the league, like those former starters who are willing to be backups do.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.